All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March meeting of the Writers Advisory Council. John, would you please do the honors with the call to order, or the roll call?
Uh, Roll call, sure. Mike Leibowitz,
Here?
Cole Stout, not yet. Solomon Chen,
Here.
Kiana Cleveland,
Here.
hello. Leonard Edwards, Lucas Haboski,
Here.
Brian Meyer,
Present.
Tina Passman,
Here.
Pat Sheehan,
Here.
Elise Siddiqui,
Here.
Brandon Wu. Oh, we lost Brandon. Okay, well, nonetheless, you have a quorum. You are 8 of 11 right now.
Great, thank you very much, John. Much appreciated. Before we get started with the agenda, I want to take a moment to welcome our newest RAC member, Ali Siddiqui from Maryland. If you want to, please feel free to introduce yourself, and if you're so inclined, let us know a little bit about why you joined the RAC. Any issues that you have, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. As Michael said, I'm Ali Siddiqui. I am the newest RAC member for Maryland. I live in Silver Spring, right next to the Metro stop, actually. So really exciting time right now with the construction of the Purple Line ongoing. A little bit about myself. I work for the Department of State as a program assistant. So, working like most DC people working in the government. And yeah, a little bit of a RAC. I've always been a major fan of public transportation, and I'm a big believer in WMATA. And I'm kind of inclined to join through a lot of reasons, especially living in the Silver Spring area. Seeing the day-to-day impact of the construction of the Purple Line and the impact it's having on our residents kind of motivated me to join. A little bit about me also is I went to American University. I graduated last year, and I heard about the RAC actually through Brian, another RAC member, because he was my, when I was a student employee, he was my supervisor. So that's how I heard about it. And so, came full circle now. So I'm familiar with one RAC member here. Yeah, so, and I'm sure Brian can tell you, we had many conversations about the WMATA when I was a student employee. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and looking forward to working with you guys.
Well, thank you, Ali. Welcome. And please definitely feel free to jump right into things. Don't feel like you need to, wait and get the lay of the land. Just jump right in because your input and experience and will be more than welcome with what we're trying to do here. I also want to note that Director Martin Proctor from the WMATA board is in attendance tonight. As we move down the agenda, we'll make sure that there's time to ask a few questions, but let's try not to put her too much on the spot, and we'll just see where that goes. But we're very glad that she's here to, we always have Bryna at our meetings, but I think this is great to have a different perspective and, and that kind of thing. So without further ado, let's move on down the agenda to public comment. John, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to us?
Sorry about that, rookie mistake. There are some folks in the public on, or at least one person from the public on. So, if you want to say something, just go ahead and use the raise hand feature. And
okay, we'll give it a
I'm
couple
gonna say
seconds.
no.
Okay.
They just went on mute, so I'm gonna. That's
Perfect.
a sign.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're glad you're here. So we can move on to the next part of the agenda here. And so this is a Metrobus digital modernization update. So we want to thank Jeff Hyatt, the Senior Vice President of Metro's bus transformation, for attending our meeting tonight to give us an update on the digital modernization efforts. RAC members such as Cole, who should be here shortly, and riders have reported to some of us, myself included, that there seems to be issues with wait times and real-time tracking, particularly late at night, as part of the 24/7 bus program. So at least according to riders that I've spoken to, this has caused some safety concerns, among other issues. And actually, some riders have said that it's kind of been a disincentive to use the late night buses. And I know, if when Cole gets here, I'm sure he'd be happy to share kind of his personal firsthand knowledge on kind of frustrations and maybe some positives too about the 24/7 bus service. I'm old, so I'm asleep, at around midnight when he took the bus. So, um, but so on that note, let's do this. Let's turn it over to Jeff to start the conversation. I know he has some things he wants to kind of get us up to speed on as far as facts go, and maybe respond directly and kind of inform us more on kind of where things are and why riders are experiencing these issues particularly late at night. So Jeff, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet you all, talk to you. It's great to see board member Martin Proctor on here too. So thank you for joining too. And I have to tell you, I'm very sorry that this is the first time I'm actually coming in front of you and meeting with you all. I've been at Metro for almost a year, about 11 months. So long overdue for me to even engage with you all. So please accept my apology. I do want to be more engaged. So hopefully, I will, try to participate, but we'll always, want to receive information and work through John to help with any kind of feedback that you have and also just kind of keep you updated. So I will make an effort to be more involved with this and with the committee and have these two-way conversations, let you know what's going on, and just us to be able to talk and learn from each other of what's going on and what we can do better and how we're improving and transforming things here at Metro. So just quickly, just to give you a little bit of background of myself, before I came to Metro, I was in Austin at Camp Metro, and there for a couple of years. And prior to that, I was in DC working at the American Public Transportation Association for about 15 years. So, and total, I've been in DC for almost 20 years of my life. So I call DC home. It's by far the longest I've lived in any city. So I was extremely honored and grateful to have the opportunity to come here and work at Metro. It's actually been an unbelievable experience so far. So I'm so thankful to be here working with such a great team at Metro. And I also love this city. I'm a transit geek. I'm a transit enthusiast. I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm passionate about transit. So I really do understand, from the rider's perspective, some of the heartaches that you deal with, some of the issues that you face, because I'm a rider too. And I do frequently text things that are going on. If I see an issue, I'm making sure someone knows about it. And I think that's very important. And certainly, this group, especially, is when you see something, even, what you may think a small issue, please let us know, because it is something that we want to address and make sure that, if you're seeing this, that means others are too, if they're having problems or having challenges. And we certainly want to make sure that we are aware of them so that we can do things better. So with that, I'm going to actually, and I hate that Cole's not on here. So, because I'm going to give some specific response to what, his issues were. And we certainly, I don't know, John, can follow up with him, but I certainly would love to, also let him know of what we're doing and kind of explain some of the things too. So if he joins later, we can talk through, but even offline, I would certainly like to kind of bring him up to speed on, some of the issue that he brought forward to you, Mike, and shared with us. And as you mentioned, what he did share for all of you who, just to clarify what's going on is, he was utilizing our 24/7 bus service in DC, which I think is really great that we have that DC has worked with us to implement that and provide this service. We have seen really good ridership on these overnight routes, which means that there was a great need for that. So there are some challenges with that. And a lot of that, just some of our technology and and how we've had to adjust things to account for that, because and when I talk about technology, it's all way over my head, so I'm not going to be able to get into a lot of details, but there's a lot of back end stuff that has to happen to make sure that all of this good real-time information is provided. And so Cole has seen some issues. I think, some of his friends and other people that, have found some issues in just having comfort in the real-time information that, or lack thereof, in that overnight service. It was something that we recognized before service actually started. So we did have to do a lot of background and a lot of QA to get that working. And because of the way some of the things cut off at midnight, our real-time information wasn't going through. So that was done, and we did a lot of checks to make sure that was working. Obviously, there still are some challenges around that. So just to kind of hone in on, on that, the one night that Cole brought up of highlighting, one of the issues he had. From that, we did look at that evening, which was on February 29th. We did some investigation just to find out what that root cause is, see where there might be some issues that we could find out. And actually, it's kind of blown my mind the amount of research that they can do and what they did find out. So they were able to go in and look at some of our GTFS real-time logs, the archive logs, and do some validation and analysis of that. So GTFS is the general transit feed. So that's what's given all of the schedule information, on-time information out there that is used in Bus ETA. It's used on these third-party apps as well. Like if you use Google Maps or Transit app or something like that, that's the information that it's getting that's freely available. So we're able to look at that and specifically look at the 70 route, which is what Cole was using that evening. One thing is, did not miss any trips that night, which is great. We don't want to miss trips. We want to keep these buses running. So that all the trips were made that evening, which was good. We also found that they were transmitting all of that real-time data and putting out predictions for trips, and that is, again, for Metropulse and others. So we were seeing that information was being put out there, but what we did find is that there seems to be something specific, an issue to our Bus ETA, which, and Cole's not here to see exactly what he was using when he was looking at this information or trying to find out this information. But on that evening, there was a schedule change, and that schedule data that happened, it happened at midnight between Saturday and Sunday. So, and I think he was writing, around 12:40, in the morning, past my bedtime too. I was long asleep by then. But we're glad to have people using the service. So it did, what happens, I think, is when we have that schedule change, that it temporarily drops some of the predictions for some trips that started on the previous service day. So if that trip started before midnight, then after midnight, it got dropped from Bus ETA. That seems to be a likely cause. In our December schedule and included overnight service changes, that changed the way some of our start times were given in our blocks in our schedule. And so we're continuing to look at how that service really impacts some of the downstream applications. So again, we don't have the exact answer, but we're still looking to make sure that we can figure that out. One of the things that we did do the following weekend, last weekend, several of our staff watched Metropulse overnight, looking at the feed and bus ETA between midnight and 2 a.m. and this was on March 1st. And they didn't see any missing data that supported the theory that the issue happens around that service day change. So that seems to be it. We were glad that the issue seemed to be resolved the following weekend. I know that there have been prior issues as well, so it wasn't a unique issue that Cole found out that one night. There are others that also have challenges too. So we're continuing to look at this. We are working with our third-party provider, which is Cambridge Systematics. We actually just issued a new contract with them that was a competitively bid contract. They actually happen to be the ones previously doing this work, but we're working with them to find the root cause of the issue in bus CTA. And we are also actively hiring and building up our new communications team in our MIC, which I'm sure you're all familiar with the MIC, so that they can actively monitor the information that's being fed, and also the QA QC. I guess my office thinks that I have left for the day. My light just went out. It's odd. But you can still see me. So we are still. So we're looking to have the folks in our MIC and our control center to actively manage the situation and be the kind of initial QA QC. So if they monitor the information that's being put out, if they don't see it, that we can find some ways to be able to work around that and provide that information. So, of course, now when I'm done, I see Cole is joining us. And I'm going to go flip my light on real quick because I do have some notes and I'm going to be able to see them because I can't see them without my light on. Shoot, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Cole, hi, I'm Jeff Hyatt. You just missed all of my information that was talking about your situation and how we're addressing it. And I will happily talk to you offline again to go through with you kind of the steps we've done, just because I don't want to take the time with the committee to repeat everything. But I will open it up for questions, and I'm happy to repeat it too if y'all want, if you want to kind of do a truncated version. But I also want to open it up at this point for questions, and then I want to kind of tell you about some other stuff too, if I may.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate your enthusiasm. That's always welcome, as well as you and the staff that you work with on what you're doing to kind of address the issue. And I think you recognize, if I understand correctly, that it's not just a one-off thing that Cole
Yes.
experiences. Something I know, like I said, that there are a few people that I've spoken to, over the last few months that have said this, and then actually some have said that they choose something like Uber over this because it's kind of developed a little bit of whether it's warranted or not, a reputation of being inconsistent, particularly the wait times. And so I appreciate, all the work on kind of analyzing this. And I know you're still, for Cole's edification, still working on kind of a solution, but let's open it up for questions to the RAC. To see, okay, so we have a hand up from Cole, and then Dina is number 2 on that. So Cole, go ahead.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for coming in. I will, no need to repeat what you said. I'll go back and watch the recording once it gets posted. I just got stuck at a work event a little bit longer than I had expected. But I'm sure this was already on your radar, and sounds like from what Mike said that y'all have an eye on it. I think it's just one to bring it to the forefront because it can be frustrating, not even if just during the day, but also like especially in the evenings when it becomes more, when buses aren't as frequent and rail's not running.
Yeah.
If you don't know when you need, if you try to plan your trip and you don't know when to leave, it can be a challenge. And I think y'all recognize that, and we appreciate it. And just wanted to get that update, and I will go back and rewatch it once we get this video posted. So thanks for being in.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome, Cole. And again, if I'm happy to talk to you offline and kind of give you a little more detailed information too. You can go listen to the recording, but if you would like to talk some more about it, we certainly can do that too. So we'll go to the next question too. Sorry.
Dina.
It was just very basic. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for coming. Can you just remind me where you're from in the organization? I missed that part.
Yeah. So I'm in our transformation office. So Senior VP of Bus Transformation, and Lynn Bowersox is my counterpart in Rail Transformation, and Kimmy Feldbauer is over our enterprise transformation office and also management of our strategic transformation plan.
Okay, so this is your Metro transformation office. They were mentioned
Yes.
last time when we were discussing what we believe is the forthcoming gender action plan. So that's
Yes.
for later.
Yes, yes, yes. And if you are able to watch the board meeting tomorrow, we will be doing an update on the strategic transformation plan and the transformation action plan too. So you can see a little bit more about what's happening in our office tomorrow at the board meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, thank you.
Yeah. And if I may, I can give you a little update on some other things that we're doing that are in the technology modernization part that really will enhance the customer experience. If you have a few more minutes and want me to do that, I don't want to take up so much time, but happy to give you a
No,
update.
that's perfect. I do have one question for you regarding the late night, kind of the app and things like that. So do you think that it makes sense while you're working and you and your staff are working to kind of analyze this, work with the contractor, everything like that, and kind of solve the issue of kind of like the scheduling, the bus schedules and that kind of thing that seems like what it's causing the glitch a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes sense to kind of put the word out to the riders because as I mentioned before, it wasn't just Cole. I mean, Cole kind of, when he sent it, I'm like, okay, he's got like actual receipts to back it up with screenshots.
Right.
But in speaking to other writers, like I said, and I know other people in the RAC have heard this too, I believe that, there is kind of that little bit of reputation, whether it's deserved or not. So I'm wondering if it just makes sense to let people know you're working on it. You're kind of isolating the problem. So that way to keep people from, because what we ultimately want is people to make, to the extent that it's, works for people and viable for them, that we want the bus to be the first choice, not Uber or something like that. And
Absolutely.
I think that's where, I spoke to a woman, I don't know, a few weeks ago, where she brought this up as kind of an issue.
That's fine. Thank you.
And so, and she's like, yeah, she's like, I tried it. It was not, she's like, I did not feel safe. And she's like, the app was worthless. And I'm like, okay, so, but I think you're on the right track. I think that people should know you're on the right track is all.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And I will talk to our comms team and see how we can get that word out there to let them know that it is something that we recognize and are working to rectify and ensure that we're giving good, timely, accurate information. Because, and especially overnight, I mean, any time of the day it's frustrating. We all know that. Overnight, and you're timing you're timing things out so you don't have to stand at a bus stop waiting, for a long length of time, and you want to get there and get on a bus because you would just for safety reasons. We want to make sure that people have that opportunity, and it's not fun for anyone to be stuck wondering, did I miss the bus? Did the bus come? Is it coming? Is it not coming? So yeah, it is something that is extremely important for us to figure out, and it's one of the priorities to make sure that our real-time information is accurate and available through multiple apps that people use to write our service. So yeah, I would definitely take that up to our comms team and figure out how we can the appropriate way for getting that word out, and as we continue to research this and also, just on top of, I mean, because a lot of this is new and there's a lot of stakeholders involved, that sometimes we kind of get to the point of who is in control of this and who owns this. And because of that is happening as we kind of are implementing a lot of this stuff, it has left us challenged from having a good QA, QC, just that control over some of this stuff and making sure that it's working. So that's part of this, is just making sure that we are doing the quality checks and we are doing all these checks. So it's a lot. So Cole, again, thanks for highlighting it, bringing it up, because as we mentioned many times, it's not an isolated issue, and we want to get this right.
And thank you again. And I'll say that I know notwithstanding the inconsistency there, that riders do appreciate having the 24/7 bus, the late night bus, whether it's for work or social life or anything, just getting around at night. So that is definitely a positive. But I know you wanted to talk about some other stuff, so please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So just kind of along those lines, I mean, there are, as I mentioned, there's a few other initiatives that we have underway. that some of them are bringing new technologies, some of us are be able to utilize our existing technology to make things better. And so I'll just kind of give you a little quick rundown, and I'm sorry I don't have any slides to kind of push it up there so you can see it. But I can we can pull something together to kind of give you an update and give the committee an update of some of this stuff too, that just kind of give some highlights of it as well. And I can work with John to get that out to the committee if y'all would like. Part of being able to have accurate and real-time information is having to be able to pull our buses, pull the data from our buses. So our buses do have AVL, automatic vehicle location, and GPS monitoring, but our polling rate is not very is pretty slow, to be honest with you, about 30 seconds. So we are working to improve that and bring that down to 5 seconds, or a little bit less. So that way the prediction accuracy is a lot better. So that does take some effort, and we have to do a lot on the servers and the routers on the buses, but we are getting there. So that polling time can be improved, and that will give us more timely and accurate data that we can then be able for arrival times and have the prediction and push things out to everyone. So that's one initiative. Another one is just looking at our display of information. And I if you listen to some of the board meetings, I think our last board meeting, Sarah Myers gave an update on our customer displays. And just from the bus perspective, we are installing all of our last buses that our newest buses that we have in service have these new screens on them, and they're not fully up to speed. We're getting that up and running still. There's been some challenges behind that, but those displays, and also in any new bus we have, we'll have these displays that provide real-time information, next stop information. If there are, it will be able to display any disruptions in service. If there's connections to rail lines, so it's going to give real information on the bus, just like a lot of times you've seen a lot in our rail stations. So we're trying to provide the same information across our system. So if you're on a bus, you're at a rail station, you're on a rail car, and you get some information that we're all getting the same. It's reading the same way. Everything's the same and consistent. So that's one of the ways just to provide better information. You also, I think, hopefully have seen some of our new signs at different bus stops. We call them the e-ink signs, or kind of like e-paper signs at some bus stops. They're a little bit bigger at some of our larger bus stops. But again, installing that kind of information makes digitally available. It also, we are making sure that they have audio functionality as well, so that it's not just those who can read it. We have so we are testing that and making sure the audio functionality is also part of this whole thing. And yes, and I know our board member Mark Proctor is a great advocate and champion to ensure equity. And so we obviously, that's kind of the forefront of all that we do, and we want to make sure that we are looking at it from everyone's perspective who's using our service. And again, the last one is our MetroPulse app. Now, we've had some issues. A lot of that was not our fault because of where the servers were. There were some lines cut, so we lost our MetroPulse for a couple weeks. It's coming back up into service, but it's now coming out on the bus service. Rail, we had opened up a MetroPulse, now bus, to provide a lot more information for riders on the bus, and having the rider app and being able to see that display. So that's kind of a second effort that kind of has a bunch of things under one umbrella. Another one is that we have that's become a priority of our general manager and others in operations is active bus management, and that is looking at disruption management tools. So our control center, or Mike, thank you, board member, for correcting me and our reference to that. But our control center, being able to communicate properly to our operators. So because we know on the bus, you got streets, there's things that happen. there's some event that causes the detour. There's some other activity that then the bus has to detour. And right now, we don't have a good way of being able to communicate information, but we also don't really have a great way of even communicating to our operator how to navigate around those situations. So we have kind of under that program, we're looking at how we provide information to our operators, how they receive information, what it is that they have, giving them turn-by-turn directions to navigate around detours. Also, it would display information to our customers. So if you're at a stop that now is being missed because that route's being detoured, we can communicate that. So this active bus management is a priority project that we are working on. And again, it encompasses a lot to get there. And we may see some certain things roll out first, probably, really focus on our operators so that they can quickly be able to navigate and have the right information. But just as quickly, we want to make sure that information is also communicated to riders as well. And then I've got a couple more to tell you about transit priority. Our bus priority program is very robust. I think you probably all aware of Clear Lanes that has now actually in operation being ticketed. We've had thousands of cars ticketed for being at our bus stops and in bus lanes, and we are seeing some improvement in our bus times being able to get through on the red lanes that with those blocked traffic. We're taking that further. We're working with DDOT. DDOT has been a great partner in this, and we really want to recognize that partnership and this specifically, they're a great partner overall. But we're looking at now we're kind of getting into a couple more months of this is where are some of the more challenging issues where we see cars blocking and do some kind of a partnering up and do kind of a targeted enforcement around some of those areas and do it in a way that's not just to go and be punitive and penalize people, but educate. We say, okay, how do we make sure that these folks in this area are parking here? Are they aware that they are parking within this time? So we're going to do some a little more targeted enforcement, working with our field supervisors and also working with DDOT to make sure that we have the right communication out there and really continue to improve on these lanes. And so we have seen success and we're really excited about where the Clear Lanes program is going. The other piece is TSP, Transit Signal Priority. DC, we have about 200 intersections that have TSP. We've got 60 in Northern Virginia, working with Maryland. PG County is already advanced in some of their TSP technology. And so we are undergoing just figuring out how we can upgrade our current TSP. We have a very antiquated TSP system right now from 2015. And as technology goes, that is old historical system. We want to move to a cloud-based system. And when you go to the cloud-based system, which is what PG County has already implemented, you have this instant communication. And so that only helps buses get through the intersection, but it also will help us alleviate, I think, a lot of the bunching that you see too, because it helps just the whole network and the corridors operate a little more efficiently. So that's one more. The last piece that I just want to kind of talk about is our fare collection. Some of you've been riding the bus, you've seen the new fare boxes which have a separate target for you to tap your card. And if you've been on some of our routes that have the all-door boarding, rear targets as well. You also may have noticed too that you may have hit it and there may be some challenges. It may not be working right. These are advanced. They're supposed to be a lot quicker and a lot easier to be able to utilize. There have been some technology snags. And again, it's, as we all know, sometimes you got to work through it. So we're figuring that out, hopefully alleviating a lot of these challenges and being able to have these new fare box that really makes the whole process a lot easier. And part of that is being able to implement all door boarding. So we do have the 9 routes that this started on that were split, we have a couple in the district in Northern Virginia and in Maryland. We've seen some success there, and we will be rolling out more routes too. As we get those real targets where you can pay for, you can tap your smart card on the bus. So in the coming couple months, we'll be rolling this out on more routes as well. That was a lot. That's fast talking. Again, I would be happy to provide some information and kind of give some, if you would like it, just to have kind of a one page or something highlighting some of this stuff, but I also would like to open it up to any questions as well.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Anybody in the rack have any questions on any of those things? I see Cole has his hand up, so Cole, go ahead.
I have a quick question about fare collection. So I really like the new scanners. They work way better than the old fare boxes. And I know that I've seen some stuff on social from WMATA about, that you'll have full door board, all door boarding coming. And I've seen those, deployed on the 70 and 79 and some other routes. But it's just the other. So is that is my first part of the question is that supposed to be happening, all door boarding? And if it is, I was just on the 70 the other day boarding at Georgia Avenue Station going north, and there's probably 25 or 30 people trying to get onto this bus. And it was the bus itself wasn't very full, but the operator didn't open the back door, and I could see the scanner in there. And I was just curious, what kind of communication is going out to riders, operators, if we're already doing all door boarding on those buses that are equipped to do so.
Yeah. So thanks for that question. So I just want to make sure because sometimes I forget. So none of the 70 buses currently are officially all door boarding. So they should not be opening the rear door, even if a rear target's been installed. We haven't rolled that out on those routes yet. The routes that have all door boarding at the moment are the 31, 33, 42, 43, 52, 54, 59, the E4, L2, and N2. And so we will be rolling those out on more routes. So if you're seeing some inconsistencies, that's good to know. That means our operators and our communication is probably needs to be a little bit better because of I'll just say there was a challenge of rolling out on these kind of initial routes and being able to do a kind of a full, out kind of communications marketing about this is because it would confuse riders. If you're on another route, why can I not do this on this route and I could do this on the other route? It becomes confusing. But the reason we rolled it out on just a few routes is because we didn't have the rear door targets installed on all the buses to be able to roll it out more. So we kind of had to do a slow roll, and we wanted to distribute it, across our jurisdictions as well. So we tried to do some targeting communication just within kind of a geo-fenced area around those routes that those are operating on and communicate to some of those riders that we could. But when we roll this out more, and I think we were going to do kind of another tranche of routes, but I think because of communication challenges and our operators just being able to have a clear understanding of what routes do and don't, we'll have it's going to be a broader approach when we do the next tranche of will be a lot more routes. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful to know and good to know. Just a quick follow-up. Is there any plan for on-bus communication once it goes more live on more routes, and you decide when WMATA decides they're ready to take that step? Is there a plan to do on-bus communication, whether that's signage or some sort of wrapping on the outside of the bus to say that we can do it or not?
Yeah. So well, one thing that we do have are decals on the outside of the bus. So they're right now for the buses that are operating on routes that do have all door boarding, you'll see a decal at the rear door saying that says you can board at this door, and it also directs folks who may have a stroller or some other wheel device that need to utilize the ramp to board, to please board at the front door because there's no ramp at the rear door. So those decals are on the buses, should be on all the buses doing outdoor boarding. I did see one recently on a 33 that did not have it. And then I asked questions, and sometimes we just got to make service, and service trumps having the right bus at the right time. So, but we should have decals in place as well to inform them. And again, we can utilize like these new systems that we have, the displays to help promote this. But we will figure out how we can also make sure there are other announcements for riders to understand that outdoor boarding is allowed. So if some folks who don't and they see people boarding in the rear, they might be like, what's going on? So it's a good point to bring up, and I think something that we need to make sure that when we communicate this, that we figure out all the ways that we can communicate this appropriately.
Great, thank you. Cole, do you have any for Jeff? So we'll do this. Our guest, Alex, has a question. But so what we're going to do is we'll go through the RAC members first, and then Alex will get to you if that works for everybody. But Dina, you have your hand up. So let's go with your question.
Hi, it's me again. It's really just kudos. So I'm a big bus person, prefer it over the metro rail. I don't tell anyone.
I do too, so it's okay. You're good company.
Yeah, I've noticed all the things that have increased the speed and efficiency of the network, and that's been really exciting. I live in Mount Pleasant, so I'm near 16th Street, and I see people parked during rush hour in the bus lane often, and I would find it very difficult to believe that no one really has a clue. The signage is clear. Traffic's all moving in that direction, but so yeah, it would be nice to see some coordination with the ticketing people.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a good location to do this little enforcement blitz with DDOT. Is to maybe that's good. A good.
Yeah, because it's a huge bottleneck.
Yeah. I mean, it is a challenge, and I mean, we certainly have seen a reduction in cars parked there. In fact, we were just talking earlier, seeing a picture prior to and post, you'd see like 8 or 9 vehicles parked in a red lane, and now we see one. Unfortunately, one is, you still have to navigate around one, so it's still a challenge, but slowly, hopefully we can get through and educate people and get them out of the lane, get these buses moving.
And then just one quick question around, are cyclists allowed to use that as long as they make way for the bus, or is that a no-no?
That's a good question, and it's that's more of a DDOT issue, is where bikes are allowed or not allowed. I mean, some of them, they do say bikes allowed in the red lanes, and our operators are certainly watching out for them, hopefully. But that's more of a DDOT thing.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Dina. Brian, and then we'll go with Alex. So Brian, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you so much, Jeff, for coming and speaking with us. A little off topic, so it's probably going to be something we'll want to tackle in more depth in another meeting. And this is largely just a little bit about my curiosity, and it could be a yes or no answer if you wanted it to, but is WMATA still on board with a spring rollout for its Better Bus Network? I think there was the year one network design, and then the visionary network. That's coming up in a couple of months, right?
Yes, so the visionary network has already been out there, been publicized, and received comments. The year one network, as you're talking to, you can grab it. Thank you. Sorry. The year we will, starting in spring, as you mentioned, there will be a lot of community engagement around the year one network and what that is, and getting that public comment. I don't have details on dates, but I do know that it will be starting up. I think I want to say April, so don't quote me, but I think is when we're going to start doing some active public engagement around that.
I think actually, sorry, Jeff. We met with that because we're going to have some more formal public processes. I think they're looking at mid-May.
Mid-May,
Early,
okay.
early to mid-May is when I think things will gear up in earnest.
Okay, good.
So,
Thanks,
didn't
John.
want people to think we were behind schedule.
Yeah.
So
I
that
appreciate
would
it.
be, correct me if I'm wrong, John, that would be after the FY25 budget is finalized?
Yes. So
I'm trying to
Um,
think my calendar, my budget calendar and my kind of operational, yeah.
yeah.
I'm just
So
curious.
the Better Bus, the new Better Bus network, given all of the hundreds of thousands of moving parts from, routes and signage and employees and planning and scheduling, wouldn't start until I think we were saying FY26, so a year from next summer.
Thank you.
If so,
Yes, yeah.
it won't have
John's
it
right.
won't have an impact on this. It's independent of this year's budget, at least.
Yeah, yeah. So, right. So we will the year one implementation, and again, I'm speaking out of turn and like, so don't quote me on any of this stuff, please. But it will be implemented at the same operation budget for current bus operations. So there is no increase in operations for the year one network, and it will be starting in our next fiscal year. So after we have to go through this other public comment period and then through a lot of changes, and then it has to go through the whole scheduling change and our pick for our operators and mechanics to do all that. So it will be next June be the earliest that the year one would be implemented.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, John. That was all good questions. So I have two brief questions, but I'll let our member of the public ask that person's question first, and then I'll get to my two questions. So Alex, please.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very informative. And I wanted to ask if there was anything that could be done for like in-bus announcements for all-door boarding, as I recently noticed on the 16M in Virginia that a lot of people just aren't aware that it's happening. Like I know the like in-bus screens, like the older ones, not the new digital ones, sometimes have like Metro Transit Police announcements. I was wondering if all-door boarding could potentially make its way up on there too for the occasional announcement, but I don't know if that's currently possible. I'm sure there are plenty of constraints.
Yeah, I think it's kind of talking about is that I appreciate you bringing that up too, because we will need to figure out how to bring more awareness and understanding around that and see if we can include that just in kind of an automated announcement, at least as this continues to roll out and people get used to it. So it's a great suggestion, a great comment that I think we certainly need to account for as we start rolling this out further.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. That was a really good question. I'm thinking more about like how can we any recommendations we can make to make that happen a little bit more. But so we'll think about that. So moving to a couple questions, Jeff. First one is, are you resourced to, I guess, quickly fix the fare boxes, when they break? I'm almost envisioning something like a quick reaction repair, where something breaks, you can immediately or as quickly as possible get somebody who's qualified to repair the boxes to go out there, meet the bus where it is and fix it. Because I know that's kind of a common complaint where the fare boxes aren't working and people are getting on, and it perpetuates the whole fare evasion thing. So even for people that want to pay, and I know I think this exact topic and maybe even recommendation was in our last annual report. So I'm just wondering if you're resourced to have something like that happen, at least to some degree.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. And I'll have to find out more because I don't know positively, how all that is managed. But my assumption and I'll tell you my assumption, and then I'll verify it and make sure if I'm wrong. So if a fare box is not working when an operator takes the bus out, generally it is allowed to continue in service, as you know, and as you probably have, all of you have witnessed, because again, making service trumps that, because it's not a safety matter, so the bus can safely operate around that. Now, these new fare boxes, the occurrence is supposed to be much lower to have fare boxes working. That being said, like I mentioned earlier, we have had some challenges, but we are improving that. Because I guarantee you, our general manager, he's been on the bus several times, more than once, with a new fare box not working, and it has been very clear that this is not acceptable. So we are working on that. No, so we do have a team. It is reported that the operator does report that the fare box is not working, and this is where I don't know the exact process, and I will find out. But my assumption is that it will be serviced that night. They will determine what is going wrong. Sometimes, again, it's a technology thing, and sometimes they just have to be rebooted to work. And the new ones, they can't do that. The operator can actually reboot on board and get the system up and running, and that sometimes fixes things. The old ones were not as easy to do that. So there are some troubleshooting methods to get them working again. And if those don't work, it is a priority to fix that, because we don't want to have a bus continuing to go out and not be able to collect fares, because as you mentioned, it just perpetuates people's belief that maybe a fare is not necessary on a bus. But I don't know the exact process, and I think it's a good question that I need to learn as well. So I'm gonna try to find out what happens when a fare box is not working.
That's great. Yeah, because I think one of the recommendations that I think the RAC had last year was something along the lines of, particularly with the new boxes, if there's an issue, then maybe you can have, if you've properly resourced and have the right people, somebody can basically drive over there, get a ride over there, get on the bus, if the driver can't get it themselves,
Right.
and then they can ride the bus, fixing it while they're on it doesn't affect service.
Exactly.
So that's why we call it like the quick reaction force. I know it's kind of a military term, but
Well, exactly, and I think that's what the new fare boxes allows is the operators kind of reboot things, and because it's all tied, like everything's tied into the signage and system, to the fare box, and so it's just kind of a rebooting per se. So it should alleviate a lot of that en route, but yeah, it's definitely an issue, and it's something that we need to continue to monitor and make sure that the occurrences are less, and that we have a good way to mitigate it if something is happening.
If rebooting doesn't work, is there a remote capability where somebody in a central office can, an IT person can fix it remotely, or at least attempt to?
That's a good question. I will ask that. I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, I think if you don't mind, maybe going through John to get some of the answers to that, because I think that'll inform maybe some recommendations from the RAC to kind of assist at least with that aspect of the process. So I appreciate your answers and your time. The really last question is a really quick one regarding Metro Pulse. You said that there was an issue, or it wasn't your fault, where the servers were cut, the lines were cut.
A fiber optic cable was cut somewhere,
Okay, well, that was just construction, so that's not an issue that's way really beyond your. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was nothing it wasn't our fiber optic cable. Is a server that that sits on, that's just external. So yeah, it's just one of these unfortunate situations that's fine. We had to just wait. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure the issue was fixed, and it sounds like it was just one of those things. So okay, those are my questions. I don't see any more hands up from the RAC. So on behalf of the RAC, I just want to thank you for your time. All of your candor, answering all of our questions and covering a lot of ground in less than an hour. That was really helpful.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And again, I'm sorry that this is the first time we've seen each other, but I do want to stay engaged, and certainly want to help answer questions and take information and guidance, and and see what we can do to continue to make sure that we're doing all that we can to improve the writer's experience.
Great, thank you so much. And for RAC members, as we look to formulate some recommendations or proposals or anything like that for everything we just heard, it sounds like, apart from the one recommendation that I personally had about, regarding the 24/7 thing about letting writers know that it's being worked on,
Yeah.
so they can kind of regain the confidence in it, and the expectation that it'll be back. I think the other items that we potentially make recommendations on are the fare boxes and, kind of the revisiting what we had mentioned in our annual report last year. And I think we're waiting for some more additional information, as well as information on the 24/7, the app, and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of get that, then I think we can maybe we can pencil it in for our April meeting to talk about it more substantive as far as recommendations to the board and to staff. So thank you, Jeff, again.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, so let's move on. Next on our agenda here is the budget update. So a little background. We've been working on, as most of you know, we've been working a lot on budget issues and educating elected officials about the rider experience and the rider perspective. The RAC has sent over 40 letters on this to elected officials in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. Now the budget season, particularly in Virginia, has been a bit of a roller coaster, as I think we watched the sausage getting made. And to my knowledge, Virginia's contribution remains, at least from the media reports, remains in flux in terms of approval and also the funding amount. But Virginia's session ends in a few days, I think on the 9th, and then the next opportunity to make something happen is in April during, I think, what they call the veto session. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because all of this can have a significant impact on service, which could, of course, detrimentally affect riders. So that was just kind of my background. I know, John, I think you wanted to talk about the budget hearings. I know some attended. I was out of town, as well as a legislative update, because I ultimately what I want to get to, beyond everything else and the information, is really, is there anything more the RAC can do at this point to be productive? I mean, does it make sense to, within the time frame we're talking about, whether it's the end of the legislative session on the 9th in Virginia, or waiting, or to send a letter directly to Senator Lucas or to Governor Youngkin, or both, or to sit tight? So John, I'm going to open the floor to you to kind of lead this conversation. You're on mute.
Oh, yes. Sorry, just getting off mute. So with regard, so obviously we get our money from three places for our operating budget: DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Maryland included additional money in the governor's proposed budget, which I believe is enjoying, strong legislative support as it works its way through the Maryland General Assembly. The district in February, at the very beginning of February, indicated that it could support up to a $200 million increase in Metro funding. Mayor Bowser and Council Chair Mendelson, made that commitment to Metro, and so we are, we are obviously very grateful for that, especially, given the significant budget challenges that DC is facing. That they're investing additional monies in Metro. With regard to Virginia, I checked in, and I will, as a sidebar, on Monday night, I was sitting at home and somebody sent me a tweet from Senator Louise Lucas, who's the Senate Majority Leader. Side note, follow her Twitter because it is fire. I was trying to bring up the tweet so I could screen share it with y'all, but I couldn't. Anyway, the Virginia House passed a budget with Metro funding in it. The Senate had not, as of the end of last week, when sort of the two houses of Virginia government sort of passed their respective budget bills. But then on Monday, Senator Lucas said that she and the Senate would support additional funding for Metro. in the budget conference committee report. So now that the House and the Senate have passed their budgets, this week is where they're in conference committee to hash out, the differences between the two. Assuming that the House and the Senate reach agreement on the budget, the General Assembly will adjourn this Saturday, the 9th. Then the budget goes to the governor, where he has the opportunity to review and propose amendments to the budget, and then the General Assembly will come back on April 17th to consider those amendments. But sort of top line is, it appears that with the Senate's support and already the pre-existing House support, it does appear that Metro is in line to get that additional operating funding from not only the Commonwealth of Virginia, which would put up about 50% of it, but then the jurisdictions of Virginia are the ones that also shoulder a significant portion of our operating budget. So half of that money would also be coming from, Fairfax County, Alexandria, Arlington, and then, cities of Fairfax, Falls Church, Loudoun County. But it appears that Metro is in good shape.
Okay, thank you, John. So that sounds like maybe we let it ride a little bit, at least from a RAC perspective, and kind of see. I think we've sent multiple letters. Hopefully, it's had some sort of impact in sharing the rider perspective and all this. But so I appreciate that. I think unless anybody in the RAC disagrees, I think we'll just kind of let it ride for at least see what happens this week, and then we can kind of revisit what we want to do after that.
I will. I can keep you all posted once they adjourn.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Bill Williams, I'm calling in. I thank God for that. I just want to pick up on whomever it was just saying that it looks like Metro is in good shape. If Maryland gives 150 and DC gives 200 and Virginia gives whatever it gives, that still leaves a system in which we'll be paying a lot more for a lot less service. And I don't think that reflects Metro being in good shape. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, John, I will say that my ears perked up when I heard you say that too. It's probably not the phrase I would use, although I understand the sentiment of what you're saying is that, funding is more on track now than I think it was, but a lot of it with sausage making and all the typical stuff. So if I understand you correctly, and to maybe not satiate Mr. Orleans' comment on that when you're saying good shape, it means that something Virginia is looking at funding, and it's just they're going to hash out the numbers. We don't know what the numbers are going to be right now, and that's why
I believe the numbers are 130 million.
Okay, so it's a little bit under what the House had, at least originally.
But
yeah,
I can double check and
Okay.
get
Yeah.
back to you all on that. And
From our end, I think it's more just, obviously the ultimate part of it is, the RAC is focused on and the riders are focused on, because of the service cuts that would end up resulting. So a lot of it just depends on, how the money is that Metro does get, how it's spent, and where they, how they do everything. And obviously that's a lot of people are working on that. So, we don't need to get into any of that right now but okay. I think we are, I think we're all understand that. I see Pat has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. John, just one last question for you. In all this discussion, I haven't heard anything from the federal side. Anything new there?
Not that I'm aware of.
I remember 30 million was the number that was being thrown around a little bit. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about federal operating assistance. I can say that they're working their way through the Transportation and Housing and Urban Development appropriations bill.
Yeah,
we're kind of going from
the CR, right?
Right. We're kind of going from almost having a shutdown to, we'll push it out a little bit further and a little bit further.
Yeah. Okay.
But that mostly, that affects our our capital funding, the funding that pays for
Right.
repairs, and the federal government is not a significant source of our operating
Oh, of
budget
the
funds.
operational side. Okay.
So,
Oh,
with
I should know that, but I didn't, John. Thank you.
right,
Yeah.
so their biggest, operationally, their biggest contribution has been through the federal employees that use the system,
Right.
and who get reimbursed for, from their employer for
Right.
using that.
Yeah.
And now
I
that
know
a
that's way
lot of
down. Right.
right now that a lot of federal employers are not doing that, I don't know that anything has sort of stepped in on the
Nothing's
federal
changed
side
there.
to
Yeah.
fill that. But I believe, and I'm gonna have to Google, and I can't do it right now, that a member of the House did put forward a bill to provide federal operating assistance to transit authorities. So it's become part of the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Whether or
Good.
not it will go anywhere, I even if it does, it won't come in time for the budget year that's rapidly approaching on July 1st.
Right. Understand. Okay. Good. Yeah, that's true. Thanks, John.
Sure. And then
Thanks, Pat, for bringing up the federal part of that. That's always something I was thinking about too. Moving on, John, do you want to discuss or give an overview of the budget hearings, then we can move on to the annual report committee, or are we?
sure. I don't know. I couldn't see, the hearings were pretty crowded. But we had, I want to say, around 70 people offer testimony at the 4 hearings, 3 in person, and then one virtual only. I can get you actually, let me just get the correct number. Sorry, 26, 15. About 70 people spoke at the hearings. And then we've also, sorry, let me find it. We also had a really significant number of people who didn't attend the hearings but provided feedback in other ways. We got a little over 8,000 people completed the survey that was online on the budget page. Around 5,500 comments, just north of 50 letters that riders and local governments uploaded, which included, out of those 8,100 survey completes, about 5,800 of those were people who had ridden the bus at least once in the past week. A little over 6,600 were people who had ridden Metro Rail within the last week, and a little under 700 were people that had ridden Metro Access in the last week. So the bulk of the people who comment on the budget are in fact Metro riders.
John, actually, I have the number from the hearings if you want the actual numbers of those who provided comments.
Oh, sure.
So we had, for Maryland, 26 provided comments. In DC, we had 20, although 15 did provide comments. 5 who had signed up left after the window incident, so they didn't provide comments. So we don't know if they either returned to Virginia or participated virtually. Virginia, we had 19, and virtually we had 9 via video that provided, and 2 via phone. So good participation.
Yeah, thank you for those numbers, Jose. I appreciate that.
Welcome. And also impressive that we had a couple of high school and junior high school students that also provided comments. One who's on screen now, Alex Mendelson. So I just want to say hello, because we met briefly at the Virginia hearing.
That's awesome.
So John, those numbers again look like the grand total was what?
Of
everything?
Of everything, 8,132 people completed the survey. 5,570. We got 5,517 sort of free-form comments. Like you could, in addition to, answering the yes or no survey questions, or you could provide a free-form comment, and then 55 letters. And then, as Jose said, it worked out. All added together, 71 people testified at the hearings.
Right. So good. So
If
we're
my
looking 12,
addition's correct.
13,000 people.
Uh,
Oh, comments, I mean. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would say probably 8 or 9,000
8 or 9.
would
Okay.
be my guess.
Impressive.
I
Good.
suspect people made multiple comments, but it was a lot of people had a lot to say.
All right, we have 2 hands up. Let's start with Ali, and then we'll get to Solomon. Ali, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, John, for giving us an update about the budget negotiations and the hearings about for the metro. But one question I have is, I guess I know from what I understand is that the DC Metro, the DC mayor and other in Maryland and in Virginia, they all have the theme is that they want a longer term commitment for WMATA to have a dedicated funding source. I'm just curious, have there been any ongoing discussions about that, the implementation of a future source for funding, or is that kind of like pushed until after the budget gets resolved?
So I honestly more the latter. I don't know, and I'm not in a position to have been included in any discussions around mechanisms for dedicated funding. Honestly, I think the sense that I've gotten is our priority is to keep the lights on, and the buses going down the street and the trains down the tracks after July 1st, and then use the next year or maybe 2 to figure out what kind of shape dedicated funding would look like, right? If that's a sales tax, if that's some other kind of tax mechanism, if there's something else, there are transit authorities across the United States that, if there's 10 transit authorities, they have 15 different ways that they get money. So,
Good question, Ali. Solomon.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember last year if anything changed in terms of the budget hearings or the structure, but I was wondering how the numbers for this year and the engagement compared to last year. I know that in the past years, there's maybe been like virtual or COVID, but I feel like last year maybe could be a good post-COVID comparison benchmark for this year. So wondering if there's more or less engagement this year.
off the top of my head, I don't know. I can go back and look and get you those numbers.
Solomon, that was a good question. Thank you, John, as well. Okay, in the interest of time, John, unless there's anything else, let's move on.
No, really, I mean, this was in case anybody that attended wanted to share their impressions of the hearing, or they're all on YouTube if you want to curl up with a with a cup of tea.
So yeah, I appreciate it. Let's move on, just because I want to make sure we have time for Lucas, and then the director, and I have a couple outreach things as well. So make sure we get everybody's time. So annual report committee outreach. Lucas, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for all your contributions to gathering rider feedback and rider outreach. Just at the beginning, kind of mid of last month, we had a really good number of responses that's kind of really informed kind of what we want to be putting in this year's annual report. So thank you all for those efforts. I did put together just a few brief slides to kind of go over some of the summary data for the annual report. Looks like I'm not able to share right now, but John, if you could I emailed it over to you if you want to pull that up, or you're able to give me access here.
Let me see what I can do. Do you want to try sharing one more time?
Let me try here. Yeah, I'm kind of grayed out on the share button.
Okay. All right, let me open up your email and see what I can do. Sorry about this, guys.
Do we want to move on while you work on sharing and then get back to it? What do you think, John? Or do you think you'll be able to?
I'm hoping this shouldn't take much more than 30 seconds. I have it up.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Your screen. And folks see my screen?
Perfect. You can go down to the first slide
Yes.
in the deck.
Okay.
So I just kind of first covered like the top 5 rider concerns. It's not truly exhaustive of everything that's going to be in the report, but I just thought it'd be important to highlight obviously the first 5 things that were on the top of riders' minds. Number 1, as we probably a lot of us could guess, was fiscal health of Metro and long-term sustainability of the system. I think a lot of people even just kind of had standalone comments about Metro and long-term funding solutions. So it's obviously a big one. Number 2 was wait times, delays, and service disruptions. I kind of tried to lump all those together. I think mainly because a lot of people would say that, of course, they want wait times to be shorter, and then they would also compliment and provide some good feedback on how wait times have improved over the last couple of years. So I just tried to put that in with this delays and service disruptions, mainly because a lot of people have communicated that the communications around disruptions and maybe track work or detours have been troublesome for them from all different areas across the system. Number 3, pretty timely, as we talked about a lot of this at tonight's meeting when Jeff was presenting Metro bus reliability. So obviously bus tracking and schedules, bus frequency, and just the amount of time spent in traffic. And then also a lot of people have wanted to comment on how much crowding they typically experience on buses, typically during peak hours. The 4th biggest issue here was Smart Trip app, scanners, and fare cards. As we know, it can kind of be hard, especially like we talked about tonight, when it comes to riding the bus. You don't always get the opportunity to scan your card. And then also a lot of people expressed, issues with, live tracking in the app and just some minor issues when it came to reloading their fare card or things not working the way it should. And then the 5th biggest issue raised this year was safety concerns. So I tried to break these out and be a little bit more specific. Obviously, general public safety on board Metro vehicles and in stations. Obviously, that's been a big concern recently, and a lot of stuff has been, been going on to try to address this. And I know Metro has gone a long way to make a lot of investments in, transit police and special police officers, as well as cameras and just general safety. And then another one, which is pretty, sad, is train surfing and a lot of people passing through rail cars. It was brought up a few times throughout the report, and it's also something that I've witnessed kind of a lot over the past few months. So I definitely think that was an important one to call out in the safety section. And then just mental health crises and unruly riders, and just kind of how those situations get addressed, and kind of how people, what they'd like to see changed or implemented moving forward to deal with some of those issues. So I think, like, in terms of the top 5 concerns, it's obviously not exhaustive of the whole report. There's still other things, but these were the standalone top 5 issues raised by riders. I think, like, if anybody has any comments, or you think there's anything specific you'd like to see in any of these, or maybe another category that didn't pop into the top 5 that you definitely think should be addressed, feel free to, we can definitely chat it out, or just let me know your thoughts. Okay, we can go to the next slide, John. I think, and then I just tried to throw a little census data together of some of the feedback that we all gathered and documented. So it's not obviously a like standalone, everybody filled out certain information. A lot of it was certain people, some people would self-identify that their home station was this, or they rode on, this line or bus route frequently. But from the respondents and the responses that we got, we had people who regularly rode all of the Metro rail lines. We had folks who self-identified from 26 different Metro rail stations across all three states, Maryland, Virginia, and DC. And we also had 17 different bus routes self-identified by folks. And then we also had ample representation from all of the jurisdictions. So your, PG County, Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Montgomery County, DC. And actually, so we had good representation in the feedback we gathered from all 8 wards in DC. So that was another good sign. And then of riders who were willing to give Metro a rating out of 10, the average rating was 7.3 out of 10. And of course, that's not exhaustive. Not everybody was willing to rate Metro, but for those of us that asked and gathered that feedback, that's what score we received. So I think overall, I had some great responses and a lot of good quotes from people. So should really be some good stuff that I'm including in this year's report. But in terms of this, that's it for my slides. However, I plan to share the full first draft of the report with you within the next few days. I initially scheduled it for this Friday, but if everyone here is fine with it, everyone in the RAC is fine with it, if I can move that to Monday, as I have some visitors in town this week, so that'd be great.
Lucas, thank you so much for all the work you've put into this and leading this this effort. Having done it last year, I know how much work it is, putting it together and everything like that, and giving fidelity to the answers and the writers and everything like that. So excellent job. Really excited to see the draft. Take your time. Don't worry. Don't sacrifice your life in family visits and things like that. We'll get it done. So thank you so much. I think this, and just we still talk about our last annual report, and we still cite to it. And I think this really is something that really sets almost like the RAC's agenda for the next year, as far as it's kind of like our baseline and it's just something. It's relevant, it's timely, and it's also independent. It's independent of kind of what staff when they come together and do their own stuff. This is us talking to writers and accomplishing our fundamental mission per our bylaws and our mission statement. So Lucas, again, thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Lucas? Seeing none, let's move on to the outreach member report out. So the outreach member report out portion of our agenda is the time for, and this is for old members and some of our guests and new members as well. It's a time for our RAC members to let us know about any observations or information they've heard from riders that might be indicative of problems or concerns on the system, or positives as well. So we can then take that information and develop proposed solutions to present to the board. And a lot of our recommendations and kind of issues that we've brought to the board have come from this part of our agenda, the outreach, and just from RAC members observing things on our own commutes and rides, as well as just talking to people at our networks. So, before I have I get into 2 things that I wanted to get into. Are there any reports from your outreach from anybody on the RAC?
None here, but I did want to just make a comment on what people are commenting on. And I think something that you find when you look at surveys and other things, let's just say surveys and questionnaires, is that they focus on all of those issues that people were just commenting on. without really getting like to the core of like the rider experience, sort of the look and feel of the actual vehicle. So I just think that's something to pay attention to. Obviously, people tell you what they're going to tell you, but those are big issues as well.
Thank you, Dina. And I'll tell you that I think the best part about our outreach, this part of it, is that I think some of the best advice or recommendations we've gotten have been more granular details of specific things that people have experienced, not like the bigger picture, but like we'll get some examples in a minute, but so I think I'm with you on that one. I think we all are on that. Ali.
Yeah, not like a report, like a formal report, but I guess like a common theme I'm noticing, at least in my area of Silver Spring in Maryland. Just like a lot of people have just expressed their like frustration to me about first the weekend close during the weekend. I'm sure, especially in January and early February during the weekends, they kind of closed it off for Silver Spring, Tacoma, and the neighboring stations to do track work. And so I think a couple of frustrations is that they would like WMATA to at least announce it as early as possible, or at least have some greater awareness, or at least try to have those tracking work during I guess like during hours which are more what's the right word, which are of less convenience to them. So like the evenings or the nights. Even though I did tell them like, oh, it's important to keep our metro, I guess like it's needed because that's how we keep our metro up to date, right? But I guess weekend plans, etc., it gets not derailed, but it makes it a bit more challenging and complex. The other thing I noticed is that a lot of them who were keeping up to date with news were very frustrated with at least frustrated and or concerned about the summer when the when Silver Spring, Tacoma, Fort Glenmont, and all the neighboring stations will be basically unavailable for 4 months. So a lot of people who live in the Silver Spring area have told me that, especially for commuting purposes, they are concerned that because they've had how do I say this, like delayed experiences using the shuttle buses, because obviously the metro is much more faster. They are worried about how they will get to work on time. How will that impact their commute? How can we make this more, I guess, efficient? So I guess like with you, Jeffrey, we're talking about buses. Like, how do we make sure that the residents of Silver Spring, I guess, and the neighboring stations, when they're closed for summer, are being adequately equipped with up-to-date bus speed services? I know that was a lot. That was like 5 questions in one. So happy to repeat.
Yeah, Ali, we'll get to Jeff. His hand is up. I will tell you that having experienced the Silver Line, Orange Line shuttle bus somewhat debacle for a few weeks. I think it was last summer now. That was horrible. And I know we actually, the RAC kind of put together a quick recommendations moving forward on that. So I think we need to dust off our recommendations from last summer on the shuttles, because I think we had some pretty good ones of how to maybe do it a little bit so we didn't run into these lines that were around the block and people were wondering if they were going to the right bus. And so I think from personal experience, I am with you and all the people you're talking to. I am so scared of the shuttles every time they bring those back. So let's do this. Jeff, I know you see your hand is up, and then we'll go to Brian.
Yeah. So if I could just comment on that, Ali, I think you have raised some good issues that are very sensitive to a lot of people, and none more so than the ones that are affected when there's a rail shutdown and then are relegated to bus shuttle to get where they need to go. So I'm going to kind of tackle one of the first questions you had, just about being informed and being the timely information, so people are aware of shutdowns and being able to plan life accordingly. There is a schedule of work, and that is something that actually are really making a concerted effort to get the communication out earlier, longer, so folks know when it's happening and then know what their options are. And obviously, we more than anyone want to minimize it as much as possible. So hopefully you'll see better communication around that to just be able to navigate appropriately for those that are affected. And regarding the shuttles, yes, last year the Orange Line and the closure of the Orange Silver, there was a huge debacle, and it took a while to get that into a state that was at least semi-effective, but it started out rough. With a lot of lessons learned from that, were then utilized when we did the shutdown over the holidays in December to try to mitigate and ensure that the shuttles would operate on a better schedule and actually where they should be going. As if you're not aware, most of the shuttle service is contracted out, and so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that these contracted operators know where they're going, that they are training their operators and know where they're going. That's what we had a lot of issues with last year. So there's a lot more effort to work with our contractors better. We are trying to utilize ours as much as possible, our own operators, but again, not to impact regular service. And also as we control costs and control a lot of our overtime costs, using the contracted operators actually saves money, but we want to make sure that those contracted operators are doing the best job that we expect them to be doing and the quality. So that's another piece of this. The last piece is kind of addressing how we run shuttles and what the routing is to get people. So you're not just being shuttled from one station to the next. So with that shutdown coming up in the summer, that is a long one and really has a large effect on people's getting to work from Silver Spring and beyond. Is we are working, we've been actively and still actively working with DDOT to give us to see how we can use some of our lanes, give us more dedicated lanes, extend the time that for red lane usage, so that if it's 24/7 or 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., but that our current bus lanes are actually to use those longer and help have a less impact on speed and getting along these routes. We're also looking at some other options that will give a one-seat ride where they need to go. So possibly having a express downtown from Silver Spring or something else. So we're looking at a lot of options to really try to minimize as much as possible for all of the folks that are going to be affected by that. And this is something that has to start early so that when it does start, we're ready to go. So those concerns and the frustrations in the past are well heard, well understood, and just know that we are doing everything possible to alleviate that as much as we can as we move to shuttles, because it's not fun for anyone, but we want to at least make sure that they're operating well enough to get people where they need to go.
I do have one follow-up question, and this is and you guys might not know the answer, just consider, because it's it either would be you guys or MTA, Maryland Transport Authority, because I guess a lot of them were just wondering when the construction, at least they don't know when the Purple Line is going to be. It's always been delayed, so there's been a lot of I guess people have not lost hope, but I guess they don't believe the dates that they put out. They're roughly estimates, but I guess in terms of the construction of Silver Spring station and the construction of the mezzanine, I don't know if you guys would know, because I know it's MTA that's primarily in charge of all of that, and they're the ones responsible. So I guess one thing that they addressed to me is do they know when the construction, in terms of noise pollution and how it's affecting pedestrian crosswalks? That's why they've been a little frustrated about the ongoing construction that's been engulfed for a couple of years now.
Yeah, it is frustrating. It's frustrating for them as well. I mean, yeah, my friends at MTA, it's a challenging project that has just had a lot, that anyone knows. We certainly are working with them and their construction schedule, and we do actually impose a lot on them of when they can impact ours, so that we're minimized. There are things that we just have to do. That project needs to be completed, and we don't want to delay it but we certainly want to minimize impacts to our customers as much as possible. And so scheduling, times where there are closures and different things that happen, is very well thought out. And to do that, there are things like, in the summer, they're getting to July 4th. It's a big issue. That's a big deal. And we have a lot of riders. It's one of the busiest days of the year, if not the busiest. So there's scheduling impacts to that have to be done, or we have to open up things that then shut down some of their construction efforts. So a lot of that is well coordinated. And it is, something that our folks are working with very closely with their construction schedule to make sure that we don't have any impacts, that we can predict it, and we have that scheduled. So then again, back to your earlier comment about communication, we can communicate appropriately.
Thank you. Brian.
Yeah, I don't want to be too repetitive, but I just did want to echo what Ollie said, and thank you so much, Jeff, for talking about that a lot of individuals on the red line are really facing quite a bit of fatigue.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a couple of people about this, and I understand it's anecdotal, but from my experience as well, I think another big issue that could be addressed, and one of the things that, Mike, we might want to consider talking to the board and encouraging staff to think about, are the bus alternatives, not even shuttle, just bus alternatives. Because I know for me personally, like when portions of the Orange or Silver Line, I live in Arlington, when those go out, I don't care that much, because I know the 38B will take me anywhere I need to go, right? That the Orange and Silver Line rails brought me, right? But once I get into the city, my knowledge of bus routes, and I work in the city on the Red Line, goes down dramatically in terms of bus alternatives on, major streets. So maybe that's an area where education, especially for people commuting in from Maryland or Virginia that may not be familiar with how to get from one part of the city or the other, or to the other, could pay a pretty good dividend in terms of reducing that fatigue and tension and frustration. Just a thought.
It's an excellent thought. And, not to give any kudos to myself for that, but actually just last week, I was thinking about that. And so I asked at our stations, what are all the bus connections so that we can be able to show at any station that's affected. And this is, and I was looking at it from the perspective of shutdowns, and also if we have just some unannounced issue, in our train that causes disruption, is how do we quickly get it, put out information of alternatives and educating people of what route to take and where to go. So I am glad you said that, because that just validates, I think, what we need to do to keep our customers well informed of alternatives. And I think that's, so I appreciate that, and something that we definitely should recognize how to communicate as we move forward, not just for planned closures, but also unplanned as well.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jeff. All good things for sure. Thank you, Ali, as well. Yeah, shuttles, I repressed that memory, I think, from last summer. So thank you very much for that. So a couple of things I have is I'm still hearing from riders out my way in Fairfax County regarding parking fees. People are saying some of that there are a disincentive to riding Metro. It didn't fit for tonight's schedule, but I do want to see if we can get somebody to speak to us about that at a later meeting, especially since we did make some recommendations about that in our last annual report. Here's another one I have that is admittedly more in Pat and the AAC's lane, and I've communicated with Pat about this, but so I've heard from some family members of people with certain disabilities in the Reston-Herndon area who are trying to get their parents enrolled in Metro Access for trips within Fairfax County. And they report that the instructions for signing up are difficult to understand, and the assessments needed to get approved for Metro Access may or may not require a trip downtown, which is difficult for some people. And I've heard this from a few people in my network now. So, and again, I've communicated this with Pat because again, I don't want to step on AAC's toes and stuff, but I wanted to gauge whether one, this is an issue, and also if it is an issue, it seems like it might be a deterrent for people, particularly in Western Fairfax County, from signing up for Metro Access. So I think obviously the best place to start, and maybe we don't handle it now in this meeting because we're running out of time, but I'm wondering if the best place to start is with Pat. So Pat, is this an area where the RAC and the AAC can kind of work together if you
absolutely.
think it is an issue? Okay.
I have not heard it. Originally I had, but I don't know if this is just a one-off case. But I did send it into Mr. Christian Blake. He's going to research it, make a phone call particularly to these people, but I can ask him the broader question. In the Metro Access meetings subcommittee meetings we've had, this has not come up as an issue, but I have a couple of phone calls to return to the guy that's running it. So we'll see if it's a larger issue. I think it shouldn't be a problem resolving this one at all, but if it's indicative of a larger issue, we do need to fix it.
Thank you, Pat. That's why I brought it up, because I know like areas like Reston, Herndon, where there's trains, but I think it's still like it's it's more difficult, I think, to go catch like a Fairfax connector to get to the train, if you can't have family members, driving people around and stuff, and it gets a little dodgy. Right. And I'm wondering if, because as things get kind of farther apart out in at least those suburbs, at least in Fairfax County, I'm wondering if that might be like, again, a disincentive. And that's why I wanted to raise it with you, but also bring it up and see if it's something that we can collaborate on if it needs
absolutely.
To
yeah. Let's figure out a way to make sure the information gets to the right people. It's
okay.
important. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Sure.
Lucas, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So first, I just kind of wanted to echo, Mike, what you were saying about parking. I actually have spoken recently with a few people who commute in from the Maryland side, from Greenbelt, and they've expressed some real fatigue over just how quickly the costs are adding up between the parking and the rail fare. So I think that if we could bring that up at an upcoming meeting, I think that would be a good thing to cover. And then secondly, I was wondering if there's anybody that knows kind of what the schedule is looking like for like the Fairgate retrofitting and changing out to the new Fairgates. My ANC actually passed a resolution just a couple weeks ago for about fare evasion. And one of the things that it requested was that WMATA expedite the new Fairgates at Rhode Island Ave Station. So I know that that's something that a lot of people in the community have been bringing up, and I haven't been able to find anything about a timeline on Metro's website. But also on top of that, I have heard a lot of good things about the new Fairgates that people are saying, and my actual home station as well at Noma surprisingly got new Fairgates out of the blue. So that was kind of an interesting thing to see when I didn't think that was going to be in part of the initial rollout. So
I know that they're scheduled to be, we have a schedule for them to be done. I will try and find it. I can't remember if it's the end of the fiscal year or the calendar year.
John, I think I recall when this was discussed at one of the previous RAC meetings that the goal was to have them all done this year. But to tack onto what Lucas was saying, they just put them in at Georgia Avenue, and I actually had to wait to get out of the station the other day because everyone actually had to tap their card, and there wasn't a bunch of people jumping the gates. So I think kudos to Metro for getting that done, and it has a tangible impact on what riders are seeing.
Yeah, and then I see Dina in the chat said that people are still finding a way to get through. I do see people who
you could just hop up onto I've seen people hop up onto the actual, like the gate, not the flat part, and run through that way. People who just like go right behind other people who push them open. It's definitely better, no doubt about that. And there's no perfect solution.
Yeah,
I
I
get
think
it.
the big thing that a few people have told me is tailgating is starting to occur. So like they'll get right up against you and kind of push through. But for the most part, I do think there's been a lot of improvement. So
Yeah, so maybe these are things, John, the fare gates as well as the parking that we can set up for at least get it ready, teed up for our next RAC meeting to talk about, because I know these are, particularly if fares are, we've talked about this before, and I know, I think I mentioned even to the board one time that there at some point we're going to be competing with Spot Hero as people start adding up their parking fees, along with higher fare rates on the trains. It's going to, especially if it's like 650, or whatever it is, or whatever it was, and ends up to be like $20 counting parking, and people are going to start to check out Spot Hero, and it's going to be a disincentive to ride Metro. So I think that's something that we should look at our old recommendations and get some more information that's more timely. So on that note, and the fare gates, thank you everybody for those comments. Let's move on to new business. First, the RAC officer elections next month. We will have our annual elections for RAC chair and 2 vice chairs. So per our bylaws, each of these 3 positions must come from RAC members, 1 from Virginia, 1 from Maryland, and 1 from DC. Everyone on the RAC, including our newer members, would make excellent RAC officers. So I certainly encourage anybody that's interested to certainly please consider it. You can also consider you get double in pay from what we make now. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or ask Cole, and we can certainly answer any questions you have about whether time commitments and kind of what's involved with that. But it's definitely a rewarding experience. I think that'll be something to think about, and let me know if you have any questions, and we'll elect new RAC chair and vice chairs in April. Okay, so let me look down my list of notes. Okay, so finally, as mentioned earlier, Director Martin Proctor of the WMATA board is here with us tonight. She's obviously been on the chat several times, and some good comments, and obviously she knows a lot. She's an absolute expert in government, politics, disability awareness, and equity support, although everything you can think of about that. And if we can put you on the spot a little bit, I guess soon to be Dr. Martin Proctor, if I read the comments correctly. Does anyone on the RAC have any issues that they would like the board to address, maybe beyond our typical recommendations, or any questions?
If you guys could just indulge me for a second, I really wanted to say thank you so much for having me at your meeting tonight. I know that this was kind of a one-off, and maybe I can do some more interchanging or just appearing in this space in co-partnership with Bryna, because Dr. Helfer is amazing and I love her energy in being here. But taking part in this was just a wonderful opportunity to really hear from the Writers Advisory Committee. I've taken copious notes. That annual report was amazing. Their top 5 concerns, the census data. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. I plan on taking all these concerns and comments back to the board. And as WMATA moves forward, hoping for your continued community engagement, especially around our equity plan and our accessibility and the WMATA UPass program. I would love additional feedback as we look at transforming all of those entities under WMATA and your outreach. And thanking you guys so much for having me. And please, if there are any questions, comments, anything that I can do to continue to support the Writers Advisory Committee, please let me know.
And thank you so much. It means a lot from all of us to have a board member show up to one of our meetings. And I think, and obviously Bryna is fantastic. I have sought her guidance and advice many times. I think the next chair will also do the same thing, and I would certainly, number one advice would be, please do that. And of course she would be like, yeah, but and all the energy that she brings. but your presence tonight has been very meaningful. I think it helps kind of put things in perspective too of, why, because we don't want to fall into the trap, as advisory council of, just kind of getting these presentations and doing nothing with them. I think, so kind of my philosophy on this and seeing you here kind of really, really pinpoints that and focuses that is that, we can have influence, we can have meaningful influence to on behalf of the riders, and that's why getting these information, have great, presenters like Jeff Hyatt and other people we've had over the last year to just come in and tell us, give us information, because our bylaws, because I'm a lawyer, so our big fan of the bylaws is like our bylaws say that we need to make conduct informed deliberations, and that's what we do in our deliberations. To create the recommendations goes to you and your colleagues. So thank you very much. Does anybody else have anything they want to add, or are we all worn out from transit for the night?
I have one question. It's a very brief question, but I guess do we know when's the end? When should we expect all the fare gates to be replaced across all 98 metro stations?
I know that John is working on getting that schedule. There is a work schedule, but believe me, we are doing it as judiciously as possible. As you saw, Silver Spring is up and running as of today, and that was just out of the blue amazing. So I know that they are rapidly moving forward, but we're going to work on getting you guys and all of these, plus or minus our best estimates, despite weather, emergencies, things not working, parts coming in, but we're all working judiciously to make that happen and move forward. And just one small note, please remember tomorrow is the State of the Union. So there's going to be some minor transit reiterations and I don't want to say disruptions, but gaps, because the Capitol Police have asked everybody to please basically use public transportation. Don't try and bring in cars. There will be heightened security on the bus lines and Metro for obvious reasons, for everybody's safety and such. So just making that note. And once again, if there's anything that I can do, please let me know. And
same thing, if there's any issues, ma'am, that you or your colleagues think that they would want to get rider perspective on, whether it's a recommendation or digging, through outreach or kind of our independent personal outreach, by all means, our line is open on this end as well. Please feel free to let us know, and we will do that, because I think we're all on the same mission, on behalf of the riders and everything like that. So we have hands up go Jeff first, and then John, and then I think we can probably adjourn. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm just want to say thank you so much for having me tonight and let me speak to you and also let me hang on and listen in too. This has actually been really great, so I appreciate that. And I too, want to stay involved in this, because I think it's a great opportunity to hear and listen from your perspective of a lot of concerns and challenges and issues that y'all are hearing and bringing forward. So I just want to end with a plug. We have you may have seen the press release out yesterday, the Fleet of the Future event that is happening on the National Mall during Cherry Blossom is coming up. We will have a mock-up of the 8000 series rail car out on the mall. And if you didn't see the press release, it's the first time since 1968 that we've had a rail car on the mall. So it's a pretty cool opportunity to allow folks to be able to walk through and see the new rail car that's coming in, and kind of have the advanced technology, although some of it's not going to be real life, but at least they'll get an opportunity to see what these new rail cars are going to be like when they come into service. And because I'm a bus person, we also will have our bus on display as well. We will have our one of our two 60-foot battery electric buses that will be out there every day as well for folks to walk through. We'll have people there to talk about all of the great attributes on the bus, these new technologies, and all of these new things that we're doing. So I encourage you to come at some point during the 2 weeks. And it is Wednesday, March 20th through Wednesday, April 3rd. It's going to be every day from 9 to 5. So come out. I hope to see you there. I'll be out there a few of the days on the bus talking to folks. So, but would love to see y'all. Make sure you take some time and bring friends and bring others. Come down and take a look at the train and the bus.
Thank you. John, go ahead. Thank you
Thanks.
again, Jeff. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything.
Thanks, Jeff. I had thought about it when Dina mentioned sort of the rider experience, and then it just flitted out of my head. I was able to find an answer on Fairgate. So this is maybe a month old. This was from our testimony to the DC Council oversight, performance oversight hearing. But so as of January 30th of this year, we had retrofitted 16 stations that comprised 22% of Fairgates. We anticipate that the system-wide retrofit program at all 98 stations will be done by fall of 2024. And we are retrofitting stations in an order that tracks the levels of recorded fare evasion events from highest to lowest. So there is a method to our madness. But the top line is that by the end of this calendar year, fall is probably broad, but I'd say hopefully by December.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful guests. So on that note, and Dina says that it's child bedtime, so same here. So I move that we adjourn the RAC meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I was worried no one was going to second that. All right.
Ollie's first motion. Congratulations, Ollie.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great
Thank you,
night.
Michael.
Bye.
Thanks for a great meeting, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Everyone, thanks.